Hey guys, tonight we're diving into how villagers stayed safe and cozy after dark in medieval times. They weren't. Forget everything Hollywood told you. There were no candlelit bubble baths, no snuggly pajamas, and definitely no central heating. I knew. If you think camping is rough, imagine camping. Permanently. With wolves howling outside your door and no bug spray. So before you get too cozy in your modern, temperature-controlled home, hit that like button if you enjoy this kind of time-travel-y chaos. Let me know in the comments, would you survive a single medieval night without crying, freezing, or being eaten by something with fangs? Now dim the lights, grab a wool blanket, extra points if it smells faintly of goat, and let's travel back to the Dark Ages. Literally. You're in a tiny medieval village. The sun is setting. Not romantic golden hour stuff, more like, oh no o'clock. Because once the sun's gone, everything changes. No streetlights, no flashlights, not even a glow-in-the-dark watch. Just the moon, stars, if you're lucky, and the creeping dread of what lurks in the dark. You hurry to finish your chores, draw water from the well, herd the chickens back in, collect firewood before the light vanishes. And when it does, you bolt indoors, door barred, shutters closed, candle lit. Why? Because nighttime isn't restful, it's survival mode. Quote, medieval homes weren't exactly Fort Knox. Your house is mostly wood, maybe some thatch, and has the structural integrity of a gingerbread shed. So, to keep out danger, wild animals, thieves, that guy who's always suspiciously lurking, you use a heavy wooden bar across the door. Windows, not glass, just holes with wooden shutters or oiled cloth. You shut those too. And the dog? He sleeps inside. Part alarm system, part foot warmer. Also, let's talk fire. The hearth is everything. Light source, heating, cooking, the medieval version of Netflix. You guard it like your life depends on it, because it kind of does. Ever tried starting a fire from scratch? Good luck doing it every morning when your house is below freezing and you don't have matches. That's why villagers kept the hearth burning all night. They'd bank the fire by covering the embers with ash to keep them smoldering until morning. No fire, no warmth, welcome to hypothermia. Also, no fire, total darkness. Welcome to stepping on a rake and getting surprise murdered by your own barn tools. So the hearth? A literal lifeline. Forget romance. Fire was the OG relationship goal. Now imagine lying down in your hay-stuffed mattress next to your siblings, your parents, and maybe even a pig or two for warmth. You hear it? Howl, crack, snort. Is that someone trying to open the door? Nope, just the wind, or maybe it's old man Henrik, drunk and trying to pee in your herb garden again. You never really know. Night was full of mystery. And let's be honest, our ancestors had terrifying imaginations. If you thought horror movies messed you up, try growing up with real-life ghost stories, curses, and the constant threat of demons sneaking through keyholes. Comment below. What medieval monster do you think would have haunted you? Okay, time for bed. No king-size mattresses, no orthopedic pillows. You sleep on straw. If you're lucky, maybe feathers. If you're really lucky, not infested with lice. You're fully clothed, because changing into nightwear wasn't a thing. Why bother when you're freezing and might have to leap out of bed to chase off a fox or run from a fire? Also, you sleep with your family. One bed, multiple people. It's like a never-ending group cuddle, except everyone smells like sweat, onions, and fear. And you better fall asleep fast, because there's no ambient music or white noise machines. Just the crackle of the fire, your dad's heroic snoring, and the occasional rat in the rafters. Bandits, wild wolves, fire, disease, and honestly, boredom. No books for the masses, no TikTok, no late-night snacks unless you'd like cold porridge or dried peas. Which, let's face it, is a punishment worse than anything supernatural. You couldn't leave the village walls. Roads were dangerous. Forests, worse. There's a reason fairy tales are all about people getting eaten in the woods. They were basically medieval PSAs. Layers. So, many, layers. Wool cloaks, tunics, hats indoors, socks if you were elite enough. They'd cuddle up under sheepskins or whatever rags they had left. Some even slept near animals, not just for warmth, but because sometimes the cow was the warmest family member. And comfort? That was a luxury. You didn't need to feel good. You just needed to survive until dawn. Eventually, after a night of shivering, strange noises, and suspicious smells, the sky starts to glow. You made it. The chickens cluck, the rooster screams, the village slowly stirs. And guess what? You do it all again tonight. All right, you're back. Or maybe you're still here, curled up in bed, wondering how anyone in the Middle Ages managed to fall asleep without locking every door 4 times. Now that we've set the stage, and you've hopefully developed a healthy fear of hay mattresses and nocturnal rodents, let's go deeper. Because staying safe and staying cozy after dark, 2 very different things. And spoiler, most villagers were lucky if they pulled off either. So let's dim the torchlight, tighten our cloaks, and tiptoe into what really kept medieval folks alive, body and soul, through the long, cold, shadowy hours of the night. First things first, night wasn't just sleep mode. Villagers had actual routines to prepare for the dark. Think of it as their version of closing down the system for the night, minus the skincare routine and doom scrolling. You'd start by securing your home. The outside latch, double-checked. The barn door, tied tight with rope so your cow doesn't go joyriding into the woods. You hang bundles of dried herbs over your doorway, not for aesthetic, but to ward off evil spirits. And okay, maybe the smell helped mask the family smell. Then comes the final sweep. Is the fire safe? Did the kids bring the chickens in? Did Grandma fall asleep in the pigsty again? Everyone says goodnight, but no one really sleeps easy. Contrary to what you might think, not everyone slept at once. In larger villages, or those plagued by frequent wolf sightings, someone always kept watch. This wasn't an official job, more like an informal, hey, you lost a bet, enjoy being bait tonight kind of deal. Armed with a wooden stick, a lantern, and a prayer, the night watchman, or unlucky teen with a torch, paced the village edge, listening, sniffing, half hoping nothing happens, half hoping something does, so he has a cool story by sunrise. Imagine walking past a foggy tree line at 2 a.m., hearing branches snap, and knowing it's either a fox or something that wants your spleen. Now ask yourself, would you volunteer for that shift? Medieval safety wasn't about cops or cameras. It was all about community. Think, if you scream, will your neighbor come help? Or pretend they didn't hear? Villagers depended on each other. If someone shouted thief in the dead of night, it triggered a kind of ancient group chat, except instead of messages, you got pitchforks and shouting. That's why every peasant knew everyone. You didn't just borrow eggs, you trusted your neighbor to not let you be kidnapped in your sleep. Plus, many homes shared walls or were built ridiculously close together. Helpful for warmth, less helpful for privacy. Let's just say you knew exactly when the neighbors were having turnip stew, or a particularly squeaky good time. Okay, so how did villagers manage any comfort at night? Let's talk cozy medieval style. Wool was king. Everyone wore it, even to bed. Undyed, scratchy, smells like sheep wool. If you were rich, you might have fur trim. If you were poor, you probably were the fur trim. Heated stones were the medieval hot water bottle. You'd heat a rock by the fire, wrap it in cloth, and shove it under the covers. Sounds smart until it burns through the blanket or rolls out and hits your foot like a medieval landmine. Bed curtains. Yep, even peasants made do with hanging fabric around beds to trap heat. It also gave a sliver of privacy when you're sleeping 2 feet away from your cousin's snoring face. It's not 5-star luxury. But hey, compared to freezing in the woods with a witch nearby, your dirt floor hut starts to feel like a rustic Airbnb. Fun fact, medieval people didn't sleep straight through the night. Yep, historically, humans had something called first sleep and second sleep. You'd go to bed after dark, wake up a few hours later, maybe do chores, pray, snack on cold barley mush, then go back to bed until morning. So if you've ever woken up at 2 a.m. and scrolled TikTok for an hour, congrats, You're accidentally living like a 14th century villager. Except they didn't have Wi-Fi. They had candlelit existential dread. So yeah, staying safe and cozy after dark in medieval times? It wasn't about warm lights and bedtime tea. It was about knowing your house wouldn't burn down, your livestock wouldn't vanish, and your neighbors wouldn't accidentally sacrifice you to appease a forest spirit. Still think you'd make it? Comment below. Would you rather be the night watchman, the fire tender, or the one who pretends to be asleep until morning? So, you're curled up next to your brother, who kicks in his sleep, your feet are dangerously close to a chicken, and someone just let out a snore so powerful you thought the roof caved in? But still, you're warm, you're safe, you're surviving. Outside, that's a different story. Out there, the woods don't sleep. The branches sway like they're whispering secrets you're not meant to hear. The wind slinks through the trees like something alive. And back then, the night had a personality, a mood, an agenda. It wasn't just dark, it was enchanted and terrifying. Because beyond the safety of your wooden walls lived the creatures of old stories, the ones told by candlelight to make children behave. You know, the classics: witches, black dogs with burning eyes, will-o'-the-wisps luring drunk uncles into swamps. The villagers didn't just believe in them, they accounted for them. Some families left small offerings outside: a crust of bread, a drop of ale, a muttered prayer. Not to be polite, to avoid being cursed. Let's be honest, if you lived in a world with no science, no electricity, and a plague every other Tuesday, wouldn't you think the night was magical? Villagers feared what they didn't understand, and the darkness was prime real estate for the unknown. Ever heard of changelings? Parents would check on their babies constantly at night, not just for crying, but to make sure a fairy hadn't stolen their child and replaced it with a look-alike. Old women whispered about night hags that would sit on your chest while you slept, stealing your breath. Sleep paralysis? Maybe. But if you woke up frozen, unable to scream, with a crushing weight on your chest, would you chalk it up to REM cycles or run screaming to Father Ildred with holy water? Even sneezing in the dark could be suspicious. Bless you wasn't just polite, it was a form of magical defense. One unguarded sneeze and who knows what demons got your soul in a chokehold. Of course, sometimes, the dark didn't just whisper. Sometimes it screamed. A fire breaks out in the smithy's shop, sparks catching dry straw like gossip in a village square. There's no fire brigade, no water hose, just buckets, and panicked villagers forming a human chain, throwing water with shaking hands and shouting prayers into the smoky void. Or a pregnant woman goes into labor after midnight. Midwife has to be fetched. But who's brave or foolish enough to run through foggy fields with nothing but a flickering lantern and sheer terror for company? And then there's illness. When someone groans from fever, sweating through rough linen sheets, you don't call a doctor, you call the wise woman, or maybe the priest. They come armed with herbs, maybe a leech, maybe a cross, and you all just hope. Because after dark, help comes slowly, if at all. At the heart of many villages stood a church, and when things got truly grim, it was the one place people dared to run to, even at night. If you heard the church bell ring after dark, you woke up. Bells didn't ring for fun. They rang for fire, for death, for invasion, or worse, something spiritual. The bell tower loomed over the village like a watchful giant. In the dark, it cast a shadow that locals swore could stretch further than it should. Kids dared each other to touch the church door at midnight. Most chickened out. The ones who didn't often claimed they heard whispers under the door. Were they lying? Maybe. But this was a world where belief wasn't just superstition. It was insurance. Every village had its own set of nighttime rules. Never written, never questioned. Break them, and you risked more than gossip. Don't whistle after dark. It attracts spirits. Don't step on crossroads at night. It's where the dead gather. Don't look through keyholes after midnight. You might see something looking back. These weren't just spooky bedtime stories. They were survival guides, passed down by grandmothers with knowing eyes and too many funerals behind them. The village wasn't just a cluster of homes. It was a delicate network of trust, ritual, and deeply rooted fear of the dark unknown. You followed the rules because someone, somewhere once didn't, and now their ghost keeps blowing out your candle. But then, just when you start to wonder if the night will ever end, the sky begins to shift. First, a pale violet, then soft streaks of orange. Roosters start their morning argument with reality. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, light returns. Doors creak open. Smoke rises from hearths. Children chase chickens like nothing ever happened. The dark slinks away like a guilty shadow, and the village exhales. Safe, for now. You made it through the night. Congratulations. You're alive. Probably cold, possibly cursed, and definitely covered in some sort of dirt. But that was the deal. In a world without lights, safety wasn't a guarantee. It was a ritual, a community effort, a daily unspoken pact between the living, dead, and whatever else was listening in the trees. So next time you complain about the power going out for 10 minutes or your heater making weird noises, just remember, a medieval villager would have sold their soul for your worst night. And maybe they did. Let's be honest. It wasn't just the cold or the wolves that haunted villagers after dark. It was the silence. That eerie, pressing silence you only get in places far from the modern world. No hum of fridges, no distant car alarms, no late-night sitcom reruns. Just the sound of your own heartbeat, your neighbor's cough, and the occasional owl that sounded a bit too human. And in that silence, your mind turned against you. Every guilt, every regret, every bad harvest and lost lamb came crawling back like a cold draft through the walls. Because medieval villagers didn't just survive physically, they had to survive psychologically in a world that didn't exactly hand out therapy appointments. So how did they cope? Faith. Religion wasn't a part of life, it was life. And nighttime? That was God's time. Or maybe the devil's. Depends on who you asked. People would whisper prayers before bed, not just to be thankful, but to beg, protect us from fire, protect us from death, keep the plague away. And please, Lord, don't let the cow give birth again tonight. Some slept with crosses under their pillows. Others hung iron charms or placed holy relics near the door. It wasn't superstition, it was strategy. They weren't asking for miracles. They were asking to wake up. But not everything after dark was terrifying. Sometimes the night was when magic happened, the other kind. Because let's be honest, where else are two forbidden lovers going to meet when you share a hut with 7 other people and a goose? After everyone fell asleep, after the last ember popped, some villagers slipped outside, quiet feet on frost-covered grass, a glance back to make sure no one saw. They'd meet behind the mill, or in the orchard, maybe by the old well, the one haunted by that drowned monk nobody talks about. They'd whisper, they'd hold hands, and for a moment, the darkness felt less like a curse and more like a cloak, hiding them, protecting them, giving them space to breathe, something the daylight rarely allowed. The danger made it sweeter, the secrecy made it sacred. But not everyone crept into the night. Some welcomed it from their beds with stories. In a time with no books and no literacy for most, oral storytelling was a lifeline. The grandmother who couldn't see well, she could spin a tale so vivid you swore you saw it flicker on the wall. Each family had its own favorites. The knight who returned from death with glowing eyes. The fox that tricked an entire village into dancing off a cliff. The child who vanished on the solstice, only to return every year for one night. And of course, the one about the midnight man, who came for those who forgot to say their prayers. Guess who never forgot again after that story? Storytelling wasn't just entertainment. It was a shield, a warm blanket made of words. proof that others had walked the dark path before and made it to morning. Let's zoom back in. You're lying in bed, not alone, never alone. There's your cousin, face smushed against your shoulder. Your aunt, breathing like she's fighting dragons in her dreams. Your little brother talking in his sleep about turnips. Space? Non-existent, but strangely comforting. People who shared cramped quarters also shared everything else. Grief, joy, secrets, songs. They laughed themselves to sleep after a hard day. They comforted each other when someone cried in the dark. And sometimes when fear crept in, all it took was a whispered story or a hummed lullaby to push it back out. There was no such thing as personal space, but there was community, and that kept the shadows at bay. Speaking of lullabies, music wasn't recorded, it was passed down. And at night when the wind whistled and wolves howled in the hills, villagers sang, softly, not for performance, for protection. Old lullabies full of strange verses. Sleep, my child, beneath the moon. Keep thy breath and wake not soon. For if the stars do start to blink, the forest waits beneath the sink. Wait, what? No one really knew what the words meant. But that wasn't the point. The songs were old, comforting, familiar. Echoes of ancestors long gone, wrapping around the night like a warm scarf. Even if you didn't believe the song kept monsters away, it made you feel like it did. And sometimes, that was enough. Finally, somewhere between your cousin's snores and the fire's last sigh, you drift off. And in your dreams, you're not just a tired peasant. You're a hero. You're flying. You're warm. You're free. The brain finds its own light in the dark. Tomorrow, the pigs will escape again. The miller will cheat you out of grain. Your shoes will still leak. But tonight, in dreams, you escape it all. And no matter how long the night feels, dawn always comes. You stir in your straw-filled bed, not fully awake, not fully asleep. The fire is still faintly glowing, and in the quiet you hear something. A soft creak, a thud outside, maybe just the wind, or maybe not. And that's when the thought creeps in. What if night isn't just a time? What if it's a place? In the medieval world, dreams weren't just dreams. They were messages, warnings, sometimes even premonitions. Sleep wasn't a break from life. It was a bridge. People believed that the sleeping mind could drift into a world just slightly out of reach, the land of spirits, saints, devils, and memories. And if you woke up with a racing heart and tears on your cheeks, someone in your house would whisper, "You crossed over last night. Be thankful you came back." Not everyone slept peacefully. Some stayed awake, watched, waited. Every village had a woman who people didn't speak of too loudly. She wasn't a priest and she wasn't a noble. She was something older than both. She knew what herbs to burn to stop night terrors. She knew how to bless a baby's cradle so the spirits wouldn't touch it. And if someone sleepwalked and wandered into the fields, she knew what to do. Sleepwalking was considered dangerous, not just for the obvious reasons, but because some believed the sleeper's soul had left the body and something else might slip in. People would hang iron at the door, salt on the windowsill, and if that didn't work, they'd go to her. They called her the Nightwise. She didn't fear the dark. She spoke to it. The night had its own language, and villagers knew every sound by heart. The clink of a bucket rocking in the wind, safe. The soft thud of hooves passing by, normal. But the sound of bells in the forest, not normal, not ever. If you heard bells at night, especially with no church nearby, you stayed inside. They said it was the wild hunt, a ghostly procession of lost souls and furious spirits racing across the countryside, punishing the wicked and snatching up the unlucky. Doors were locked, curtains drawn. No one looked out. Some even believed that if you so much as saw them gallop by, your soul would be marked, and you'd be gone by the next full moon. The night wasn't quiet. It was listening. And sometimes it spoke back. By morning, the villagers would gather by the hearth and talk about their dreams. Not idle gossip, not casual chit-chat. These were matters of fate. A dream about drowning meant change. A dream of black dogs meant death. And if you dreamt of crows flying backward, someone in the village would not see the next harvest. The healer, the nightwise, or an old grandmother would interpret them all. Sometimes with a gentle voice, sometimes with a furrowed brow and a deep sigh. Because the dreams weren't yours alone. They might belong to the village, to the land, to something older still. Even smoke was watched closely. The way it curled, the color it changed. If it drifted west and faded quickly, it meant the night spirits were done with their work, for now. When winter hit, nighttime became something entirely different. The cold didn't just creep in, it attacked. Frost formed on the inside of shutters. Breath turned to mist in the air. Fingers stiffened even under blankets. And sometimes villagers didn't wake up. They simply drifted off and didn't return. There was even a word for it in old dialects, the night's claim. It meant the cold had taken someone so gently they hadn't even stirred. That's why people kept fire like a holy relic. Logs carefully stacked, ashes banked just right, and someone always assigned to keep the flame alive. It wasn't just about staying warm. It was about staying seen by the living. Because once the fire went out, it wasn't always just the cold that came in. There's one last thing people rarely talk about. In the heart of the darkest winters, when survival trumped propriety, entire families would sleep together in the Great Hall. Not just siblings or parents, but neighbors too. Dozens of people laid on the floor, near the fire, bodies packed close for warmth like a human tapestry. It wasn't weird, it was necessary. You'd hear snores, whispers, prayers, laughter, the soft wheeze of a dying grandfather's breath. Babies whimpering, someone grinding their teeth. You shared everything in those moments, the heat, the fear, the hope, and somehow it created a kind of peace. The darkness was still outside, but inside was alive. It was the most human thing of all. Not romance, not wealth, but warmth, shared, held, guarded like gold. There's an old phrase from medieval Europe, the hour between wolf and dog. It referred to the twilight moment when the light is so dim, you can't tell if the shape moving toward you is a friend or a threat, a dog or a wolf. That hour came again each morning, that brief blue breath before dawn. For villagers, it was sacred, a moment of reckoning. They had made it, again. The fire had burned, the house had held. No one had vanished. They would rise, stretch sore limbs, open the shutters, and blink in the glow of a new day. But part of them still stood in the shadows, listening, remembering. Close your eyes and listen. The wind outside still howls gently through the forest branches. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls once and then goes quiet. But in here, inside the thick walls of your thatched roof home, everything feels calm. The fire's soft crackle is the loudest sound. You're sitting close to the hearth, knees pulled to your chest, wrapped in a woven woolen blanket that smells faintly of smoke and wild herbs. The heat from the stones beneath the embers slowly spreads through the floor. You wiggle your toes against the rushes, still faintly warm from the fire's kiss. And around you, your family. Not just blood. The neighbor who lost her husband last harvest. The cousin visiting from the next village. The old man who tells the same story every night, and somehow it never gets old. There's a peace here, a quiet unity, the kind only forged when people survive things together. Frost, hunger, floods, and fear. Before sleep, there are things that must be done, not chores, rituals, little acts of comfort passed down like family heirlooms. The ashes in the hearth are carefully banked, a layer of dampened peat or moss placed just right so the fire doesn't die but sleeps softly through the night, ready to spark again at dawn. The youngest child, barely old enough to speak, gets to add the last pine cone to the fire. For luck, for dreams, for no reason at all, it just feels right. Herbs are scattered near the door, rosemary to ward off spirits, lavender for calm, chamomile for rest. You don't question it. Your grandmother did it. So did hers. So will you. The shutters are checked one final time, not to keep evil out, necessarily. Just the wind, the damp, the cold breath of winter trying to sneak in uninvited. You hear the latch click shut and feel your shoulders relax. Nothing can come through now. Not tonight. This is the best part. The part everyone pretends isn't their favorite, but secretly is. The stories. You've finished the bread and cheese. The dog has curled up at your feet, twitching as he dreams of chasing rabbits. And now the stories begin. Not big, booming tales of knights and dragons, but small ones, soft ones. The kind you almost believe could be true. A woman who fell asleep and woke up in a forest made of glass. A farmer who befriended a fox that knew when the harvest would fail. The time your uncle swore he saw a will-o'-the-wisp near the old mill, only to find it was just Cousin Tom carrying a glowing onion in a lantern. Laughter, bubbles, and quiet waves. Not loud, just warm, the kind that makes you feel full even if supper was thin. And when the story ends, no one claps. They just smile. Because that's enough. It's time. The fire dims, now just a red-orange pulse behind you. Mats are unrolled. Woolen cloaks doubled as bedding, sheepskin rugs laid out with care, and bodies settle side by side and not packed tight, but close enough to feel each other's breath. Children next to mothers, the eldest by the fire, for warmth, lovers sharing one blanket, toes tangled. And the snoring? Oh yes, it begins almost immediately. The room smells of earth, fire, fabric, and dreams. It's not silent, but it's soothing. The human symphony of night, soft snores, gentle breaths, someone whispering a prayer in Latin under their breath, just in case. You're not afraid, not tonight. You're a thread in this giant human tapestry, and sleep pulls you down gently, like a warm tide. Before you drift off completely, you hear it. Not a ghost, not a monster, not anything that needs to be feared, but a sound that feels like a lullaby from the land itself. Rain, a soft patter on the roof, gentle, rhythmic. It rolls over the thatch like a mother's hand smoothing a child's hair. Rain meant water for crops. Rain meant no fires, no bandits on the road, no travel. Rain meant the world outside would rest too. It was, in its own strange way, protection. And then comes the final comfort, a whispered voice in the dark. You can't tell who. Maybe your mother, maybe your friend, maybe your own thoughts. But it says only this: sleep well. The fire is strong. The night is kind. We are together. And with that, you let go. The fire is nearly gone now. Only a single glowing coal remains beneath the ash, pulsing softly like the last heartbeat of the day. The cottage is silent. Still, everyone has drifted into sleep, wrapped in wool, breath slow and deep. Even the dog has stopped twitching, but not you. Something in the night keeps you half awake. It's not fear, not exactly. It's curiosity, that strange hum that seems to rise from the earth after midnight. That feeling in your chest when the world is quiet, but not empty. Outside, the wind has changed. You can hear it brushing past the shutters like fingers across cloth. It doesn't howl, it hums. Low, patient, like it's waiting to see if anyone is still awake. You shift in your blanket, one eye open, listening. There it is again. Tap, tap, a soft knock. Not at the door, not on the wall, somewhere higher. The roof. You hold your breath. No one else stirs, not a single body shifts. The fire gives a soft sigh as the last coal collapses in on itself. You're alone with this moment now, and the night is very much alive. You rise slowly, carefully, trying not to wake the others. Your bare feet touch the packed earth floor. Cool, slightly damp. The scent of ash and rosemary clings to the air like a protective charm. The window shutter isn't locked. It never is. The latch is just a hook of old iron, looped through a wooden ring. You unlatch it with a finger. The window creaks open, just enough to peer through. And there it is, the village. But it doesn't look the same by moonlight. The rooftops are bathed in silver. The shadows stretch long and sharp like claws across the ground. The thatch of every house seems frosted, but it hasn't snowed. Just cold air and ghostlight. Then, you see it. A figure. Standing near the well. Not moving. Not drawing water. Just there. Wrapped in a dark cloak. Hood pulled low. Facing your house. You blink. And they're gone. No footsteps. No sound. Just vanished into the folds of shadow like a thought forgotten. You close the shutter gently. Hook it tight. Back to your blanket you go, but sleep won't come easy now. You think of the stories the old man told, the ones everyone laughed at. The bell ringer who vanished one foggy night and came back years later with no memory. The sound of coins clinking in the woods after midnight when no one walks the paths. The white fox that watched the children play, but only appeared to those who'd lost someone. They said it was just tales, but maybe not all of it. The villagers didn't fear the dark blindly. They respected it. There were rules. Never whistle after sunset. Never spill salt on your doorstep. Never say your own name too loudly at night. And never, ever, answer a knock after the fire dies. You tuck that thought away as you lie there. Eyes closed, ears open. The wind is gone quiet again. Whatever visited the village tonight, it left in peace. You hope. Morning is still far off, but someone stirs. You hear the gentle scraping of flint against steel, a puff of breath, a spark, then light. Your father, or maybe your brother, has risen early, like always, to relight the fire before dawn. The first flickers warm the room. Orange blooms against the walls, shadows soften, the hearth glows like a promise. You feel safer now. The mystery of the night doesn't vanish. It just steps back, quietly, politely, as if saying, until next time. One by one, the others begin to stir, stretching, mumbling, rubbing their eyes. Someone adds more wood to the fire. Someone else puts on a pot to heat water, maybe for broth, maybe for tea if herbs are plenty. But you're still wrapped in your blanket, still awake, still thinking about the figure at the well. Did anyone else see it? Will you tell them? Maybe not. Maybe you'll just carry it with you, like a small ember in your chest. The chickens begin to cluck outside. A rooster screams with misplaced confidence. A dog barks in the distance, probably chasing a shadow or a mouse, or nothing at all. And the day begins, as it always does. Safe, ordinary, unaware that the night was anything but. But you know, and now, so do we. Earlier, before sleep ever crept across the cottage, something curious happened. It was small, barely noticeable, but in a world without electric distractions, small things thunder. A scraping. Behind the wall. No one else seemed to hear it. The others kept talking, sipping from clay mugs, throwing kindling into the hearth. But you paused, tilted your head. There it was again. Not a rat. You know that sound. You know their scuttling, their urgent hunger. This was slower, deliberate, like a fingertip dragging across the wood from the other side. The wall it came from? That one backed into the hill. Just earth and stone behind it. Nothing should be moving there. Nothing living. Still, no one reacts. They laugh, swapping stories of broken carts, moldy cheese, a pig that got into the flour bin. But you can't unhear it. So you quietly rise, walk over to the wall, and press your palm against the timber. It's warm. Not from the fire, from something else. You don't say a word, but you don't sit back down either. You just keep your eyes on that wall long after everyone else goes to bed. Hours before dusk, the village's herb witch stopped by your home. She doesn't come often, and when she does, it's never for nothing. She gave you a pouch, small, sewn shut with thread so fine it must have been drawn from spiderweb or moonlight. She didn't say what was inside, just whispered, "Keep this close tonight." Everyone rolled their eyes. They always do. But you kept it, tucked under your blanket. And now, lying there in the half-dark, fire fading, you pull it out. It smells like lavender and wet stone and something sharp, like iron or regret. You hold it to your chest, not sure why. But as you do, the tension in the room shifts, subtle, like the walls exhale. The wind outside dies. The dog stops whining in its sleep. Even the coals stop their restless crackling. And the sound, the one behind the wall, fades. Not gone, just calmed. You don't open the pouch. You're too afraid to find out what's inside. But you do fall asleep with it clutched in your hand. You wake with a jolt. The fire's cold now, nothing but soft gray ash. Everyone is asleep, mouths open, legs tangled, a lullaby of snores and sighs. But you're wide awake, heart thumping. You dreamed, no, felt, someone pull your blanket. You're sure of it. A gentle tug, just once, enough to startle. You sit up, look around. No one's near. Then you glance down. The pouch, gone. It was in your hand. You never let go. And yet, it's not there. You scan the floor. Nothing. You pat your blanket. Nothing. But your eyes drift to the door. It's open. Just a crack, but wide enough to show the outside world. Moonlight pours in like spilled milk. And right there in the doorway, something lies on the ground. You crawl toward it. It's the pouch, open, empty. The thread has been cut, cleanly. Not torn, not bitten. Cut. By what or who, you can't guess. But the silence is deeper now. And the warmth you felt earlier? It's thinned, just enough to make you wonder. Was the pouch keeping something out or something in? You don't go back to sleep. You lie there, eyes wide, ears sharper than a thief's knife. And that's when you notice something odd. There's a space on the floor where the dust has been disturbed. Not trampled, not swept. Brushed aside, delicately. A footprint? No. Too smooth, too symmetrical. Almost like someone knelt there. Right beside your bedroll. Not touching, just watching. You feel the air around you. It's colder near that spot. Your breath fogs just barely. And in that moment, you know something was there. Maybe still is. Just before dawn, the hens begin to fuss. Not loudly, not all at once. One hen, one cluck, a shuffle, then silence, then another, then silence again. It doesn't sound like animals waking naturally. It sounds like they're being warned. You peek out the window. The coop is still there, door shut. But there's a shadow just past the fence line, a shape you don't recognize. You blink, and it's gone. You wait, hold your breath. Then comes the sound of boots. Slow, one step at a time, but not heavy, measured, purposeful. Like someone who knows exactly where they're going. You're not the only one awake now. Your brother stirs. The dog growls, quiet but aware. You don't say a word, just reach for the latch. And pray the door holds. The hearth is dark now. The last coal sighs out. But you know better than to sit in shadow this close to dawn. Something stirs in the gloom, not evil exactly, but ancient. You reach for the flint. The tinder is dry. You strike once, twice, again. Sparks, but no flame. You cup your hands around it, whisper to it like the old women do. Come now, little light, come now. But it's like the darkness isn't letting go, like it's holding the air still. Behind you, the others are shifting in their sleep. Not dreaming, no, tossing, muttering. One of them breathes your name, not quite waking. You strike again. A spark leaps. Finally, the tiniest flame curls up from the kindling. It feels different this time. Not warm, not safe. like it's watching you too. Still, it's better than the cold. The wind picks up, crawling across the thatched roof like fingertips made of fog and frost. At first you think it's just the breeze, but then the whispering begins. Not in your language, not even in words, but in feeling. A humming, a warning, a memory that doesn't belong to you. You rise slowly, blanket wrapped tight around your shoulders, and press your ear to the wall. There it is again. That whisper. A breath pressed between reeds. A name without a face. And then, nothing. Just the wind. Just the soft creaking of the wood. Just the faint crackle of a stubborn fire. But now you're shaking. Not from fear exactly, from knowing that fear is appropriate. Most cottages have secrets. This one has a little door beneath the bed you're sleeping on. You didn't notice it before. Covered with straw and a sheep's wool rug, it blended into the floorboards. But when you went to tuck your feet under for warmth, your heel knocked something hollow, a small echo. You pull the rug back, and there it is. No lock, no handle, just a wooden hatch nailed long ago with bent iron tacks. It smells strange, like dried rose petals, damp soil, and something metallic. You shouldn't open it, but you do. The hinges groan softly, like someone sighing in their sleep. Inside is a space no bigger than a dog's den, empty, except for a bowl carved from bone. Inside the bowl, a dried-out rose, black, brittle, unnaturally whole. You put the door back. You don't tell anyone. But your sleep after that is never quite the same. At the edge of morning, when the sky is that strange blue-gray bruise of not night and a day, the world seems to hold its breath. This is the hour of shadows that drift just outside the candlelight. You feel them. They don't breathe. They don't step. They slide. You try to keep your eyes open, but they grow heavy. Heavier, until at last you blink. And in that blink, everything shifts. The pot you set on the shelf is now slightly turned. The iron hook holding the ladle swings ever so gently. The door's wooden peg is now inside the latch, though you didn't move it. When your eyes close again, you whisper aloud, "If you're here, be kind." No one answers, but the room settles. Almost like they agreed. There is an old bell on the outskirts of the village, hung between two leaning posts of gray wood. It hasn't rung in years. The cord was torn by wolves, or lightning, or time. No one really knows. And yet this morning, as light finally touches the frozen fields, it rings. Once, a deep, low tone. The sound travels through the village like smoke. Windows crack open, faces peer out. Children hush. Elders pray. No one pulls the bell. Everyone knows what it means. It rings when something wakes beneath the earth. You don't ask questions. You just gather water from the well, tuck in your shirt, and pretend it's a normal morning. But deep inside, you carry the echo of that bell with you. All day, all week, maybe forever. Despite everything, the whispers, the open door, the hidden hatch, the bone bowl and the bell, somehow you stayed warm. Maybe it was the pouch. Maybe the flame caught just in time. Maybe your ancestors wrapped around you like invisible blankets, their lullabies still etched into the walls. Or maybe the village watches out for its own. Not just the people, the trees, the stones, the thatch, the forgotten spirits in the corners of rooms who just want to be remembered. You made it through the night, and when morning sun spills golden onto the floorboards, turning frost to dew and fear to fading memory, you feel it. You were never truly alone. You're almost used to the silence now, almost. But then the smell comes. Sweet, heavy. Not wood smoke. No, that would be normal. This is honeyed, like mead boiling over, like fruit left too long in a sealed jar. It weaves through the gaps in the cottage wall, creeping around your ankles, your wrists, the back of your neck. You lift the curtain above the hearth. Nothing there. The coals are cold. No one is cooking. The old pot hasn't been touched since last week's stew. And yet, this smell, this lingering warmth without fire. You open the window a crack. The scent is stronger out there. Across the misty yard, where the low morning fog curls around the grass like sleeping cats, something faintly glows, amber light shifting just behind the woodshed. You watch it flicker, and then it vanishes. Just like that. You whisper, "I didn't see that." But the honey scent still clings to your sleeves. You should have gone back to bed. You were tired. But something pulls you outside, bare feet on the cold earth, trailing the scent in the flicker like a dream you can't wake from. And there she is. She wasn't there before. A crooked woman, standing where the morning sun can't quite reach. Not old exactly, just shaped like she's folded in the wrong places. Wrapped in a shawl that moves even when the air is still. She doesn't speak at first, just looks at you with eyes like pale candle wax. Then she says, "You kept the door shut. Good." You say nothing. You don't ask what door. You know. Then she adds, "But now something else has smelled you. It knows you woke before the sun." You try to ask her what that means, what it is. But she's already gone. As if she'd only existed in the moment, between one breath and the next. You go back inside, shut the door, bolt it. The fire's still dead. The others are still asleep. But the cottage feels awake. There's a sound beneath the floorboards, like breath being drawn through wood, like lungs in the stone foundation. You place your hand on the wall. It's warm. You press your ear to the floor. A single heartbeat. Not yours, not human, but slow, ancient, steady. The sound of something that's always been here, watching. You whisper again. Not to the others, not to yourself, but to the house. "Keep me safe till the bell rings again." Too low. The heartbeat slows, then stops. And the warmth wraps around you again, like a mother tucking you in with arms made of timber and time. At some point, someone lights a candle. You don't know who. It's on the table now, flickering golden, casting shadows across the loaf of barley bread and the little wooden bowl of salt. But no one remembers lighting it. You try to snuff it out twice, but it flares back each time, stronger than before. It's not frightening, not quite. It's determined. So you leave it. Let it burn. Let it throw warmth across the walls like it owns the place. The candle seems pleased. Its flame dances when someone smiles. It dims when the cottage grows tense. It lives. You realize that. Not in the way you or the chickens or the cat live, but in its own way, a small, stubborn fire that refuses to go out until it knows you're truly safe. You hear the rooster, but the light still doesn't come. It's trying. You can feel it. Just beyond the hills, the sun strains to rise as if something heavy presses against it from the other side. The sky turns a bruised blue, then an uneasy gold. And still the shadows cling to the trees like wet rags. You boil water, pour it into clay mugs. No tea, just heat, just something to hold. The others finally wake, their eyes wide. They say things like, "Strange dreams. Did you hear the bell? The old tree lost a limb again." Everyone is calm, too calm, like they all agreed without speaking, not to mention the real things they felt. The smell of honeyed smoke is gone. The crooked woman didn't return. The heartbeat beneath the floor never came back, but the candle still burns. And so, as the sun finally breaks over the rooftops, you sit quietly with the others, wrapped in wool in silence. You made it, again. But something feels different, as if the night left something behind. Something still curled up in the corners of the house, breathing slow, waiting for another dusk. And you wonder, will tomorrow's night be the same, ours? Or has something changed forever? Morning finally takes hold. The sky is soft gray linen, the fields stretch quiet under a thin veil of mist, like the earth is still undecided about being awake. But something's off. You feel it first in your chest, like a held breath, the kind you take when you're listening for a sound you're not sure you want to hear. You step outside with the others, just to feel the sun. Only there is no warmth. The sun is there, up in the sky, full and pale, but it gives no heat. It hovers like a painted coin stuck on a canvas sky, watching, just watching. A bird flutters overhead and makes no sound. The rooster clucks once and goes silent. Even the wind, when it stirs, feels like it's sneaking past something. Someone says, "It's just a quiet morning." Another adds, "Nothing wrong with a little peace." But even the peace feels like it's listening. Down the slope beyond the cottages, where the sheep usually dot the hillside like clouds come down to nap, there's nothing. No bleats, no bells, no shepherd. Just a crooked path winding down into fog with footprints leading out, none coming back. You ask old Wheela, the herb woman who knows everything, where the boy's gone. She peers over her shoulder, stirs her root tea and says, "He left before dawn. Poor lad said he heard whispering by the sheepfold." You ask, "Voices?" She nods slowly, never meeting your eyes. Said they were humming something, but the tune kept changing. You want to say something brave, something that will break the spell in the air. But all you manage is a nod and a whisper. "He'll come back." Wheela doesn't answer. She just pours a second mug and sets it in front of you. You take it without thinking. It's warm, bitter, tastes like old dirt and mint, but it's real. It grounds you. For now. In the stable, something strange happened. Big Tom was trying to lead his oxen out for plowing. Two beasts, strong and silent, bred to obey. But this morning, one of them, Bran, refused to leave his stall. Not just refused, he trembled. His massive frame, usually unshakable, quivered like a sack of loose grain. His eyes were wide and wet, staring not at the barn door, but at the sky. He made a low sound, not a moo, not a grunt, something deeper, older, like fear from another time. Tom shouted, yanked the reins, even offered Bran's sweet barley mash. Nothing worked. Then, suddenly the ox lunged backwards, snapping the harness, slamming into the stable wall with such force the timber cracked. And then silence again. Tom hasn't spoken since. You pass him later, sitting on a tree stump, staring at the broken harness like it might speak. Something is wrong. Not loud wrong, not chaos wrong, but silent wrong. Like the world is biting its lip, keeping a secret too big to say. You go to fetch water. The well near the chapel, the one lined with moss and old prayers carved into the stones. It's usually a comfort, cool, deep, faithful. But today, the rope resists, the bucket won't sink. You pull it up, dry, again, again. On the fourth try, you lean over and look down. You shouldn't have. Something is there. Not a shape exactly, not a person. A feeling, a presence. It doesn't move. But it notices. Your breath catches. You feel it, truly feel it, watching. Not angry, not friendly, just aware, as if you woke it up. You let the rope go, step back, whisper a name, not yours, not anyone's, a name that slips from your lips like breath in winter. You don't know where it came from. The well goes still. You don't tell anyone, but you don't drink from that well again. Not today. Maybe not ever. Back in the cottage, something strange has happened. The fire is lit. No one remembers starting it. No one admits to adding wood. But there it is, crackling, golden, perfectly steady. The warmth reaches every corner. Even the cold stone near the door is toasty. A soft scent of lavender and burning pine fills the air. Cozy, familiar, too familiar. It smells like your grandmother's hearth. But she's been gone for years. The others notice too. No one says it, but they feel it. That strange comfort. The youngest boy in the house curls up near the flames, giggles once and whispers to no one, "I missed you." His mother freezes. You see her mouth move, forming the word, "Who?" He just smiles, falls asleep. No one moves him. You all just sit in that warmth, still, quiet, listening to the fire whisper something ancient. The candle still burns. The warmth hums. And somewhere beyond the thatched roof, something waits for night to fall again. And so the day passed, quiet as snowfall on old wood. The villagers carried on, patching fences, minding flocks, stirring stews. But something had shifted. Not in a way you could see or even say out loud, just felt. Like a shadow that moved when you weren't looking. Like a voice you heard only in the space between sounds. The fire still burns. The candle still flickers. And the village, our humble medieval refuge, holds its breath as twilight stirs once more beyond the trees. Maybe nothing was ever wrong. Maybe it was all just the weight of winter, old bones creaking, and minds chasing stories. Or maybe something did walk among them, something ancient, something quiet, something that only comes when the stars blink and the wind forgets its name. So next time you curl up under your blankets with a mug of something warm, listen closely. Not to what you hear, but to what you don't. The silence might be watching. And if you're still awake, thank you for dreaming through the ages with me. Until next time, sleep warm, sleep safe, and sleep with one ear open. Good night, traveler.